Good afternoon or good morning, depending where you're calling us from, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Adam Cohen. I'm the usual host for these Comodo 1 Technical Thursdays webinars. For those of you who have joined us before, welcome back again. For those who it's their first time, I would like to say welcome to this webinar series. So the purpose of this webinar is to really talk about questions that clients ask us, basically you guys, about what they want to see on Comodo 1. Now, there's a variety of things that people have been asking for, such as bulk upload, service desk, how to use patch management. These are just examples of the questions we've received in the past. To date, this is the 10th Technical Thursdays webinar we've done. We tend to host these every 2 weeks. So with that introduction, I would like to also introduce our speaker today, who will be Ezekiel. Good morning, Ezekiel.
Hi, Adam. Good morning, and good morning, everyone.
So Ezekiel is going to take us through this today. I'll be asking the questions that you guys submit on the chat box, and I'll ask them to Ezekiel. We usually either have Ezekiel or another person called Jonard, who does these with us as well. He's done it for the last 2 times, but Ezekiel and Jonard will sort of rotate occasionally, depending on their availability. So just before we get launched into this webinar, just to kind of explain the format. So you probably noticed on the registration form that you could ask a question in advance. So the most frequent questions that are asked, we will take now during the main bit of this webinar. Now, there is also a Q&A session for the last 15 minutes. Any additional questions that we receive during the webinar, we'll take those during that Q&A session. And if you would like to ask a question at any point during the webinar, feel free to type it in the chat box. Just a reminder that only myself and Ezekiel have audio access during this webinar. If we can't answer your question during this webinar, don't panic. We'll get back to you after the webinar to give you a response to your question about a day or 2 after the webinar. Okay, so with that, let's get straight to it. So the first question I have here, Ezekiel, is, does each residential customer need to be set up as a company, user, and device? Can this get complicated?
Yeah, let me just pull up ITSM first. All right, so when you're enrolling a device in ITSM, and when you enroll, generate an agent, it is always tied up to 4 different attributes. First one is the company, the owner, the device group, and also the profile. All right, so let me just pull up or try to generate an agent. So I'll just have to go to this plus sign button, enroll device. Then I'll just have to choose first the owner and the company. All right. So if I click show enrollment instruction or send email enrollment instruction to the owner, this is the exact same thing that he will see. And there's a token that's always assigned to the agent. That token is always unique per owner, per combination of the owner, the company, device group, and the profile. Right? So we have different ways of enrolling a device, but if you do it here by generating an enrollment agent over the air, we call this over the air enrollment. This is only going to ask you the owner and the company where it is going to be tied up. But if you generate it by the bulk installation package, you can associate the enrollment agent to those 4 attributes. All right, so let me just wait until this pulls up. So while it's loading up, the reason why it's actually being tied up to those things is because we can apply the profiles to the owner, to the company, to the device group, and also we can also assign a default profile for each device. So let's go here in the bulk installation package. So first here, question is the user or the owner, the company, the device group, and also the profile here. All right. Now, again, the reason why we are always tying up the agent to this for is because we can apply the profile much easier in this way. So let's say we go first to the owner. So profiles, by the way, are a group of configuration or settings for your ITSM features and Comodo client security features that you can apply directly to the device or to group of devices. Right. So here in the user list, if I select a user there will be a manage profile button, and I can just assign the profile there. So any devices that is enrolled under that owner or under that user will follow the same profile. Okay. And if you assign it by user, there's also a way for you to choose which company within the user can only follow that profile. Now let's just wait for this one to load up. There you go. So I can just pick one. Let me just pick this one, which has 3 devices in it. So I pick the owner, click Manage Profile. Then I can choose the company where I would apply the profile. Right? So we already hit 2 elements or attributes of the agent, which is again the owner and the company. Now I said it is being tied up to the device group. So if we go to the device list, we also have a way to apply the profile in the device group. So yeah, you will just actually see the same thing. You will just choose the group, click manage profile, and then apply the profile from there. Now there's also a profile that is always tied up to the agent because we always need to have like a security option that is tied up to your devices when you enroll it. But of course, if you don't have the security application, it would mean nothing. So like for this one, I go to the laptop, group management, and I have the manage profile button here. So I'll just have to choose the profile that I would want to assign on this one. All right. So yeah, and you can also apply the profile to every incoming device by default. So meaning if you enroll the device using the over-the-air method, so naturally it's not going to have any profile assigned to it because you didn't choose anything. So it's going to apply the default profile there. That's why it's always tied up to the profile. All right. So and you cannot cancel out the default profile here. There should always be one profile per device platform. So there, we have one default profile for Windows, for OS X, Android, and iOS. And we can also have multiple default profiles if you want to kind of compartmentalize your section, your profile sections. Right? So yeah, that's the reason why we always tie up our agent, the user, the company, the device group, and the profile.
Okay, thanks for that, Ezekiel. The next question we received is, can we see proper configuration and use of the Comodo remote control for MSP Comodo accounts?
Oh, okay. All right, so let me open the profile here. And I'm going back to the device list. All right, so first here in the profile. So again, every devices that you enroll is always tied up to a profile, right? So there's no device on here that doesn't have any profile in it. It's just a matter of what are the settings that you will apply to that profile. So if you're aiming to have or configure your Comodo remote control settings, you will have to do it on here into the profile. So if you don't see the remote control option, you can find it under the Add Profiles section drop-down because maybe it hasn't been added yet. Okay. So while it's loading up, let me go back here. So if you want to take remote access to the device, I'm not talking about any configuration here, but I'm just talking about how to take a remote access. So I'll just have to choose the device and then click remote control. Right. So if I click on that, it's going to pull up the Comodo remote control console. So let me just pull that up for you. Right. So this one. So we have two portals here, Comodo 1 and ITSM. So if your technician is added to the Comodo 1 level, this is where he should log in. But if your technician is just added to the ITSM level, then they should log in here. Right? So many are asking about the domain. The domain that you should put here is your ITSM subdomain. So in my case, my subdomain was this, the z-msp.cmdm.comodo.com. But then again, this portal is only useful for the technicians that has been added to the ITSM level. Right? So going back on here, just to show you what are the settings that we can put to your Comodo remote control. So you can silently, or you can put the remote control in silent mode, meaning that it's not going to ask any permission at all when you try to take remote access to a device. Or there's also an option to ask permission, then allow after 30 seconds. So if there's no one in there, and and click disconnect, or or no one responded to the pop-up, basically, in 30 seconds you'll be able to continue with what you need to do. Ask permission, then deny after. So if no one responded to the pop-up after 60 seconds, then you will be denied. Do not allow remote control. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And the remote control message. So there's also the option here to show notification to the device user, allow endpoint user to terminate the connection. Right? So those are the options that you can apply to your Comodo remote control whenever you try to take remote access to a device. Right? So we also have some additional, or just an additional information about the Comodo remote control. If there are tickets that has been raised via ITSM, meaning let's say your end users created the ticket here in the Comodo client communication, and also if they have or if the ticket was created from the monitoring, because we also have a way to submit the ticket when there's a monitoring condition that has been violated. Let's say you're monitoring CPU usage, RAM usage, and network usage, that if it goes more than 75% for 5 minutes, then you will have a ticket created, right? So once that ticket is raised to service desk, you have an option there in service desk. If you have any service desk technicians, they can just easily take a remote access to the device without them having access in ITSM. Right, so they don't really need to go on here into the management part if they're just allowed to take a remote access. Okay, so just to show you here, under applications, service desk, all right. So we have the tickets on here. Let me just go to my tickets. And so you will see if the ticket has been created from ITSM, if there's a device identified. So in that column, it shows the device name. It's coming from the demo PC. So I have the remote control option in here, where when I click, it's just going to open up this one, the Comodo remote control. And then if it's already logged in, of course, it's not going to ask you to log in anymore. It's just going to pull up the screen where you can take a remote access, right? And the configurations that you have applied to the profile will also be applied to the devices, right? So that's just basically how you use Comodo remote control in ITSM and in Service Desk.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Ezekiel. The next question we have is, how can I customize Comodo One Service Desk?
All right. Oh, I should have not closed that. Let me just pull that one up again. All right. So as you know, when you sign up with Comodo One, it will ask you to set your subdomain name. So in my case, my subdomain name is just Z, just one letter. So my service desk portal would be z.servicedesk.comodo.com. All right. So let me just to show how it looks like. So you have the logo up here. You have the title and the body of the message. So you can configure this, and you can also configure, or modify what you see here, or what are the things that you can fill out here on the ticket. So let's go first to the admin panel. All right, so if you want to change the logo up here, all you need to do is to go to the settings, and then you will go to the company. So you have the option here to change the logo that shows up in your help desk portal. All right. So from here you can also modify the pages. So the landing page of how it looks like, the offline page. So if you put your help desk page down, and the thank you page. So this is the one that's going to show up after a ticket has been created, right? So just to show you the landing page, that should be under the manage and then pages. So from here you can modify how your landing page looks like. So basically that's this, all right? So go to the landing page. Right, and then you can change the title here, and of course the body of the message, this one, right? And you can also show the knowledge base that's shared in public. So to do that, you just have to go to the knowledge base under settings menu, and then just make sure to enable the knowledge base. Sometimes if you enable this, you still don't see the knowledge base option here. If that's the case, that means that you don't have your categories in the knowledge base shared as public, right? Because we can also make internal KBs or knowledge base. So here in the categories, you have the option to make it as a public or an internal FAQ category. Okay. So yeah, also when you open a ticket, as I said earlier, this is something that you can modify. You can add more information on here, but just before we go there, there's also another setting that I want to show you under the admin panel. So we also have an option here to require all the user or everyone that wants to create a ticket to have a login, so they can properly communicate with the technician. So that's under access control settings. So still under settings and access control settings. So you have the option here to require the registration. Right. So if you do that, next time I actually access this, it's going to ask you to So I'm going to ask you to log in. There. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the ticket. I lost track there for a minute. So I will have to go to the manage and then forms. So we have what we called here built-in forms and custom forms, right? So for the built-in forms, these are the forms that we have on here already, the service desk portal. So like if you want to update the contact information, if there are other fields that you want to add up for the contact information, same for the company information and organization information. So it would make sense if I show you how would I add the field in the ticket details. So let's say here I would want to add another information that I would want to get, like the serial number. Right, so I can go for a short answer, could be a long answer, date and time, phone number, chat box, right? And then I can also make this an internal or a required. If I make this as uh, an internal field, this means that I can only fill this out if I'm creating a ticket here in the service desk portal. But if it's outside, meaning in the help desk URL or by email fetching or by ITSM, this is not going to be filled in. All right. So required, if it's required or not, and the variable. So let's say SN. Save changes. If I click open new ticket, oh, sorry, I haven't removed the registration requirement yet. Save changes, refresh. There you go. So I will have here the series. Now, what if I want to make this a drop down, right? So the drop down can be filled out here. It wouldn't make sense if it's still a serial number, so I'm just gonna change it. So let's say we go the pages. Oh, sorry, it should be in the forms. So in the ticket details, so let's say, let's just make it the brand. So brand, and I'm gonna make this as a drop down. So I'm gonna go to the list, it's under manage and then lists. So if you want to put a drop down in the field that you're gonna add to the portal, you'll have to first create a list. So I'm gonna add a new custom list, right? And then items. So let's say I want to call Asus, HP, Samsung, and what else? Dell, right? Add item. Oh, sorry. Add list. All right, let's see if it's. Oh, sorry, forgot this. Laptop brand. Our name. Okay, I think it's good. All right, so if I go back on here to the forms, this one is the list. Forms. I go back to the ticket details. And I will go to the laptop brands, brand, and then click save. Now, if I go in here, I refresh it, scroll down, there's going to be a drop down now. Okay, so that's how you customize this page right here. There's also one more thing. So we can also support the tickets per category. So we can have like additional group of information here that we would want to be added if the category selected is this. Right. So let's say for the feedback. Right. So I have here in the ticket categories. So let's go back to the form as well. All right. So I can also create a custom form. So I have a custom form here called survey. So let's say I would want to say here, or I would want to ask, are you satisfied? Something like that. All right. And then I can, I don't have a yes or no answer. But let's say this one. Just let's assume that this laptop brand is a yes or no. Just, for this instance. And then required, and then variable, AYS. Save changes. So now this custom form is not going to show up here right away unless I select this feedback option. So what I'm going to do is on this category, the feedback, that's under the manage ticket categories. Now under the feedback category, I will add a custom form called survey. If I hit save changes, I now go back here, refresh, then I choose feedback. There's an additional option here if you're satisfied or not. All right. So yeah, that's just basically how you can fully customize your help desk portal.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ezekiel. Um, I know that took a while to answer the question, but we do have, I guess, one time for one more question, and then we'll move to the Q&A. So the question we'll take here then, Ezekiel, is how can I control what other users see when I create them on Comodo 1?
Yeah, sure. Let's go back to ITSM. I'm just going to close the field here. All right, so it's about the role management. So when you add a user in ITSM, there is uh, a field in there that you have to fill in which role you should need to apply to this user. All right, because this user is not only made for the end users. This can also be the technician, your local technician, or your client, the decision maker for that company. Right. So if they want to have a full visibility on the devices that they manage, you can also give them access in ITSM, and they'll be able to, view the devices that they are working on. So they can also do some monitoring, some you know configuration, and remote access, things like that. Right. So I have a sample here. Let's go for the client A. So for the role management, of course, first you have the permissions. So like, for example, you don't want to give an access to this guy, you have uh, a remote access option. So here you can just turn it off, and all other permissions down here. All right. But with regard to the specific question about what they see, so it's not just about the permissions. It's just not about the features that they see in ITSM, but also about devices that they manage. So from here under access scope, you can turn off the companies like this one, for example. This is for client A, or basically for company A. So I turned off almost everything except the one for company A. I'm going to turn this back on. And I'm going to turn off company D. So this way, the only devices that this user would only see are coming from company A. All right. So that's just how you basically limit the things that they will see in the ITSM portal.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Ezekiel. So that's time for all the questions we have now. So let's move on to the Q&A session to take the questions we've received during the webinar.